This little clip is just giving you basic information about atomic structure. The periodic table of elements has a list of all the different types of atoms, but they're all basically made of the same units. Each of the elements in the periodic table is a type of atom, and they differ only by the number of subatomic particles they have. The three particles you need to make up an atom are protons, neutrons, and electrons. The name of the atom depends on how many protons there are. So, for example, 3 protons will give you lithium. 6 protons will give you carbon. The atoms all have names and symbols. Most of them are fairly easy to remember. I'll give you some examples here. However, there are a few that are derived from Latin names, and that makes it a little bit tricky to remember them. For example, plumbum gives us the word for plumbing, and it's based on the Latin word for lead. And natrium is the Latin for sodium. So the initials for the symbol for sodium is Na. Always a capital letter, and if it has a second letter, that's in lowercase. So if we're given a symbol on the periodic table, we can get lots of information from that. We've got the symbol name and the element name, but also we have 2 numbers. If there are 2 numbers, the smaller of the 2 numbers will give you the number of protons, and the elements are listed in order of the number of protons, 1, 2, 3, and so on. Sodium here has 11 protons. Remember, it's the number of protons that tells you what the element is and how it will behave. The larger number of the 2 numbers is the mass number, and we get this from a combination of the number of protons and neutrons. In other words, the total number of elements in the nucleus. It's often not a whole number, and the best thing you can do is round it up to the nearest whole number, or, in some cases, to the nearest half number. The reason the mass number isn't a whole number is because of isotopes. Won't go into the details here, but what you do need to know is that atoms, can have a different number of neutrons, and elements with the same number of protons but a different number of neutrons, or a different mass number, are called isotopes. 2 examples given here. Electrons. The number of electrons is the same as the number of protons in an atom. They must balance because the charge balances. An atom is neutral, so it must have the same number of positive charges as negative charges. Protons are positive, electrons are negative. The electrons are located in shells around the atom. The shells are filled from the inside outwards, so the first shell can contain up to 2 electrons. A third electron would go in the next shell out, the second shell. The shells are filled in order, and there are up to 8 electrons allowed in the second and third shell. You don't usually have to go beyond the third shell for your description of the position of the electrons in an atom. Electrons can be gained or lost. If they are, the atom becomes an ion and is positive or negatively charged. For example, the atom shown on the screen, sodium, will lose 1 electron, and its electronic configuration will go from 281 to 28. That will mean it will have 1 more proton than it has electrons, and it will have therefore it will have a net positive charge.